Welcome everyone to the Test Automation Best Practices webinar. We'll begin shortly within a few seconds. For all those who are joining us for the first time, we are doing a series of events on test automation best practices, where we invite thought leaders from different verticals and industries so that we get some perspective on this particular topic. So we had almost 4 sessions previously where we spoke about multiple topics. If you want to get hands-on any of these webinars that was previously conducted, you'll see a link on your chat windows where you can click on them and get those videos on demand and go ahead and enjoy those sessions. So really excited to speak about today's topic, which is curating test automation strategies for real devices. So in the last decade, we have seen that a significant shift in the approach we are building software products, right? Leaders call upon the importance of unified customer experience across all channels. And nowadays it's predominantly mobile. So just to give a perspective of how important it is, I've just put up a few statistics on this particular slide, where you can see a huge demand for testing on real mobile devices or even using a real mobile device. So for today's webinar and talking about this particular topic, I'm really excited to invite a curated panelists here, Abhishek Das and Pinky Gorai. And I am Aditya, Senior Customer Engineer here at BrowserStack. I take care of customers in the commercial segment throughout Europe, where I listen to customer problems and then curate solutions by giving them BrowserStack products, right? I would pass on the baton to Abhishek and Pinky to give us a brief introduction about themselves. Yes, Abhishek.
Yeah, thank you, Aditya, for the opportunity. So, hey, hi everyone. I'm Abhishek Das, currently working as a quality engineering manager at Elsevier with over 9 years of experience in the IT industry. My expertise lies in quality engineering with a strong focus on automation and in-depth knowledge in the banking, specifically payments and healthcare domains. I'm passionate about driving quality and efficiency through innovative automation solutions, and also I like to thrive in dynamic environments that values collaboration and continuous learning. So that's a small gist about myself. Yeah.
Yes, Pinky.
Thank you, Aditya. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Myself, Pinky, automation specialist at Accenture with over 10 plus years of industry experience in automation. I'm currently playing the role of a subject matter expert and architect. So my areas of experience is to build automation frameworks for end-to-end solution delivery across projects for multiple flavors, such as front-end GUI, back-end API, visual pixel perfect testing, accessibility, performance, load testing, security testing, etc. And I excel in designing framework flavors as per client requirements, enabling the proof of concepts, handling the critical root cause analysis and issues for the fitment on smoother delivery of CI/CD DevOps release cycle. Thank you.
Welcome, Abhishek and Pinky. Really happy to have you in our webinar today. So a certain few housekeeping items that I want to bring up on in today's webinar. The webinar will be running for 60 minutes and it is being recorded, and the recording will be available after this particular webinar is done. I request all the participants to be on mute so that it does not interrupt our panelists while we are presenting. And we'll have a dedicated 15 minutes of Q&A at the end of this particular webinar. And if you have any kind of questions, please post it on the Zoom Q&A window, which is right below. So the agenda for today's webinar is that we'll be getting first-hand experience on how can we build a long-term test automation strategy. And also we'll talk about different automation best practices and also a few design strategies as well. And then we'll move on to the core of today's webinar, which is testing on real devices. And post that, we'll get onto the Q&A section, and hear to all your questions and give you answers. So let's begin. So Pinky, I've seen that in your introduction with your diverse experience in handling multiple customers. I'm really curious to know where and how do you implement test automation in your existing testing strategy?
Okay, obviously, Aditya, it's an interesting question for today's session. Before deep diving into this query, the basic question is why somebody would want to opt for automation in the first place. So this thought, automating a product is to reduce manual efforts predominantly. And that being said, to achieve highest quality assurance as a testing metric, that's when it is worth automating a product. So the few key points which I would like to highlight here. Firstly, automation would suffice for maximum coverage, recovery scenarios, minimal manual intervention, easy reporting, specific to project or client needs. Secondly, the degree of maintenance cost with a significant return of investment for any quality assurance process or team. Automation definitely improves testing process accuracy, reduce testing efforts with cost benefits. It provides an excellent execution platform or environment, you can say, where we can write automation scripts and you can run it on daily basis as per our needs, or scheduled or on demand, maybe on regression runs, sanity, smoke, via CI/CD DevOps. So if a user develops, executes, generates a report automated through an automation script in an efficient manner, it is just one-time investment which can be used repetitively again and again. And that's where the beauty of automation lies. When and how or why should we have automation in the first place? I believe I'm able to share some light for the audience as per my industry experience. Over to you, Aditya.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Pinky. I think I have a similar question for Abhishek as well, right? How are you implementing your testing, automation strategy at Elvisor as of now?
So I think, Aditya, it's a very common question, and majority of us always look upon this question, how it is being implemented, how it works. It varies from different industry to industry. So at Elsewhere, I'm associated with various healthcare products where quality expectations are diverse based on the user interface. Let's consider mobile or web, as well as the backend API. However, based on the insights from this webinar, I will be primarily focused on the mobile device testing going forward. So before we dive into the automation implementation, it is crucial to gain a holistic understanding of quality engineering within the context of product development, regardless of the specific project. So product development falls into primarily two categories. Actively developing products, like if we wanted to migrate our web app into mobile native app, or legacy products which requires maintenance. So within this framework, prioritizing the development of automation test suites and determining the amount of quality engineering effort needed during the deployment of these products becomes crucial. So let's consider if a product is in development stage, our automation development criteria cannot be static due to the potential for ongoing changes during the incremental development process. This could bug fixes, new features implementation throughout the development cycle. Therefore, we require a robust test strategy and implementation process, which are crucial to ensure alignment with the future vision and achieve comprehensive quality coverage, coordinating between manual and automation. So if we consider a product is already stable, let's consider a legacy product where minor enhancement and with minimal impact are prioritized with test automation. So this is where we try to include more automation to enabling faster deployment with minimal manual effort required from quality engineers. So while implementing test automation within our organization, we have focused not merely about executing code and functions to cover all possible scenarios, but focused on recognizing the inherent challenges of sampling important matters in testing, understanding user needs, environment, customer users, analytics, which are paramount. So our approach emphasizes being quality engineers over framework developers, prioritizing solutions to business problem efficiently and effectively. However, the answer whether automation resolves productivity issues, ensures optimal speed and code quality, depends on what and how we automate. So the main question comes, what purpose we solve by implementing automation? Since we emphasize on 5 Ws, why we need automation, what we need to automate, where we need to run our automation, when we need to run when you need to renew your automation, and who are the specific eligible customers for your automation. Once we get this basic criteria and requirement, it's very easy to determine how we need to design the framework and how we need to implement. It varies between different aspects. So in essence, our automation journey aims not only for efficiency but also maintaining a healthy work-life balance with success contingent on foundational strength and continuous improvement. I hope I have given a highlight over my idea on the automation development overview.
Yeah, Abhishek, like completely makes sense, right? And also understanding your own test team, their persona and their skill set also adds, a big difference into, choosing a particular test automation framework for your customers or for your internal projects as well. So, yeah, I think we also not even, I just asked about where and how. I think just provided us where, how, all the whys, all the, all the five whys. And thank you for that. So moving on, talking about automation frameworks itself. So Pinky, so how are you implementing, your automation framework, and what are the best practices that you're following, when it comes to test automation and designing test cases?
Again, another interesting question for the webinar session. But for the intended audience here, Aditya, let's try to understand why in the first place we would want to have a framework. I mean, why it is needed at all. So a framework provides you a platform which is an easy maintenance of your code. It's a one-time effort. Once the framework is built, you can use it as an asset over various multiple projects. And in an SDLC project, we need to do a shift left testing for multiple lower environments before any production go live to mitigate issues early. So when we have a framework, it helps to build a script specific to the test case design and validate the coverage through regression, smoke, or sanity runs. Now let's understand the type of frameworks available as per the industry best practices. Um, Let me slightly deep dive into the types. So there is a module-based testing framework, which is specific to any project and should be aligning with the particular modules or the scripts adhering to the product features. Another is a library architecture-based testing framework that can be leveraged as an asset or jars in other projects designed with reusable libraries. Suppose if it's a functional front-end automation using Java Selenium. So both the technologies are open sources. Those are built-in libraries and can be reused for multiple projects just by writing the scripts and validating the test cases. Since only the HTML or the UI or the markup or the front-end page test data would be different for each project, so Java Selenium utility methods would obviously remain same. Benefit for this type of framework would be the asset library or the jar. You can reuse it and you do not have to write the entire framework from scratch. This would obviously help you save time, effort, and cost. And this kind of assets can also help you into getting RFPs for business proposals. Another type of framework, if we deep dive into looking for the data-driven testing, where we give you a luxury of the framework where we do not have to build the scripts from scratch. So everything what is built in so nicely, you have to just only put the test data and execute the script. It benefits QA testers a lot with limited knowledge base of testing. They can just update the data and do a quick evaluation. The areas where it can be utilized majorly is backend API-based testing or AEM author-based testing for Adobe Experience Cloud Manager. Similarly, we have the keyword-driven and the hybrid testing, which again covers both data-driven and keyword-driven. Finally, with the agile way of working, behavioral data-driven framework, which has certainly evolved in the recent years, just think how we want to develop a framework from a product owner or say a business analyst point of view, not just automation testers or a coders or a QA person's point of view. So QA has drafted the test cases and those test cases are maintained somewhere in the repository or say maybe in HPALM lifecycle. How do you want to map it with the automation scripts? That's where BDD plays a key role in mapping the front-end test cases with the back-end test scripts along with the test data with such an easy understanding of simple English language, so that anybody who is going through the framework can, easily understand it. Definitely, we have the Cucumber supported Java technology and SpecFlow for .NET technology for the BDD frameworks. Now, coming to the criteria, how to select a specific framework, or what are the key criteria specific to industry best practices. So to build a framework from scratch, basic prerequisites should be met. When I say about basic prerequisite, that means the type of automation tools, technology, which is either open source or licensed, supported for a particular project specific to the client requirement or cost, and the delivery timelines with the number of resources and the required skill set. Another foremost key criteria to build something from scratch for a framework is to check if you already have a framework, then how can you reuse it? So the general rules for automation frameworks: maintaining coding standards to avoid manually repetitive errors, test data handling techniques and benefits, accessible storage for derived test data, object repositories or cloud platforms needed for continuous CI/CD execution, say via Git or Jenkins. Next thing is the user experience. What kind of framework would you want to build or you want to design? So suppose you want to do a front-end GUI testing. So what kind of framework do you need there, or a back-end API testing? Like example, we may have a requirement of visual pixel perfect testing and BrowserStack supports PERSI, or say multiple cross-browser testing through devices. So how do we want to support multiple devices across browsers via automation? That is another way of evaluation. And to look into the non-functional type of framework requirements, when we have to evaluate, say, performance testing or load testing or security testing, there the built-in tools with the plugins, the framework can be designed via, say, JMeter, Google Lighthouse, or Dast, etc. Now, coming to certain key criteria, which are very much essential when we maintain the standards of creating a framework, is the first one is the code quality checks. When I talk about the code quality check, whenever you design a framework or build a framework, the code quality check, the way the code is been written, the standard checks has to be there, and this can adhere. Like I have used SonarQube checks as per DevOps integration, which definitely gives you a continuously access to your code and with the standards maintained, and helps you avoid making repetitive errors again and again. Metrics and tracking would come under the criteria where what are the type of test cases you want to design specific to the traceability and the areas you want to cover, and wherever you're maintaining it into the repository or say maybe in the ALM tool. Integration with CI/CD. When I talk about integration with CI/CD, it is not just that frameworks are built in and that there is a seamless support integration or deployment through Jenkins, GitHub, GitLab, etc. It's more on how can we make CI/CD based automation execution seamless. What if we can design a GUI and the end users who are not just developers, coders, or manual testers can just do a regression run or a smoke run or a sanity run for multiple environments if we provide certain parameters through for the DevOps CI/CD execution. So that is one way to design that. Another way is definitely for the test data, if we give a configurable override test data mechanism where our test data is already suppose say a regression run is designed for 50 odd test cases, and it is already scripted, and someone wants to run some 10 new scenarios, and it's a test data dependency. So you just give a mechanism to just override the test data for your CI/CD DevOps execution. That's where the beauty of GUI based CI/CD execution helps in. Other than that, the pointers to keep in mind is the programming language, what we select. Whatever other open source languages are not licensed can be obviously used more and more so that it doesn't create limitations for the easy access and usage. Then again comes using those languages, the libraries we create should be more, reader friendly and usable, and that can be leveraged as an asset for multiple projects. So as I was saying earlier that if the particular library based architecture is used, then definitely it can be used as an asset for multiple projects and it can be leveraged in more than one project. Then the key criteria is the reporting feature. We definitely have extend report, Excel reports for various overviews of the pass fail scenarios, the coverage, the execution time, and the exceptions captured. But the reporting scenario is not just to capture that whole picture of the pass fail scenario. What if we have a observability report from the analytics point of view? Suppose, for example, BrowserStack suppose the test observability feature, and those kind of dashboard data analytic trends helps from even business users point of view. The next thing is the test data generation support. How smoother can be your test data, which can be designed, whether you want to support an Excel, or you want to support a JSON data format, or you want to support a test data JSON format. So the different particular libraries what you would be generating, which would be developed in such a customized way that dynamic generation of libraries can be a good solution for test data. And obviously override solution for regression run and smoke run executions definitely gives another point for the QA persons if they are not from a coding background. Efficient exception handling again wraps up for the SonarQube standards if we follow it. Mostly the code whatever we write should be maintainable and it should have appropriate design so that it can be extended and leveraged in any of the project wherever it is needed. It should be compatible. When I say compatible, it shouldn't be restricted. Suppose today we are using our cloud platform, say BrowserStack, and tomorrow we want to expand it for some other cloud platform for other project. So my framework should be in a situation where it can be leveraged and extended. So that integration and that expansion should be available. That compatibility feature should be there. Apart from that, when think around, if a project doesn't have the cost or budgeting to extend it in a cloud platform model, so how do they want to validate or evaluate the parallel executions? We can have containers, and with using Docker creation we can do parallel execution via CI/CD, and obviously ensuring that the code is clean, easy to understand, and it is simple. That is the major criteria. And summing it up, obviously last with the AAA scripting pattern, act, arrange, and assert. So any kind of framework should support maximum assertion so that the positive and negative corner cases can be covered. And finally, it should be well documented so that anybody who wants to leverage that particular framework for their project will obviously face no hurdle. So a user guide documentation, I would definitely give an applaud to BrowserStack, where if we go through the documentation, that gives us an easy understanding how we can easily make use of the documentation, and that can help us benefit in writing of easy code. I think that's the summary from my experience. Over to
Yeah,
you,
Pinky, I
Aditya.
mean, yeah, it's very, very relatable, right? And, it uh, clearly matches with where BrowserStack wants to be in terms of the unified testing, narrative that we are building, where we have the test creation to the test execution to reporting, and then to documentation, so on and so forth. So, yeah, I think that was a excellent, comprehensive um, um, set of thoughts that you presented to us. And then now slowly let me move on to Abhishek, where Abhishek, I wanted to understand a little bit more, right? Let's deep dive a little bit more into how exactly do you design and write the test cases, and what are the best practices that you use while doing so?
Definitely, Aditya. I think I agree with Pinky, and she has beautifully described the criteria and the pattern that usually followed for designing and development of the test automation framework. And I'm just going to highlight a very directly in line with the development work, that is a test case design, and how do we write it. So before I jump, like I just wanted to say that we have a common proverb that conveys like, if we automate a mess, then we develop an automated mess, which will definitely restrict our flexibility in development. So we cannot convey the term 100% automation achieved, but our primary goal should be achieving maximum automation, which is required to cover the functionality coverage. So to achieve this, we should have a curated set of test scenario or a test case repository which serve the purpose of developing a well-balanced automation scope within sprint or within the entire tenure. So in Elsewhere, we are a global team which is spread across different time zones, and maintaining the automation development work, we need to adhere a standard set of best practices which should enhance the design and writing test cases that not only supports automation effectively, but also contribute to the overall efficiency and the success of multiple automation initiatives that we usually take forward. There are actually a lot of different best practices are there. Few of them I would try to like to highlight here that we follow. One of them, the first one, I would say the writing clear and concise test objectives. So clearly defining the purpose and objective of each test case or scenario to ensure focus and clarity in automation effort. So automation can be excelled if we know what is the objective, why we are defining it, and how well balanced it is. That is one of the major critical criteria to both are in line with the manual and the automation effort. Second is, which Pinky has already covered, like modular test design. So if in the initial stage, if we break down the test cases into smaller modular components that are easier to automate and maintain, so breaking into smaller components allows you for reusability across different scenarios and minimize redundancy. This actually describes like, if we have already covered a particular set of functionality in one particular test scenario or test case, we should not duplicate that in other test scenarios. So if you reduce in the initial stage this duplicacy, the automation development work or the script that we are generating would be minimized, because it would be again a duplicate work. Multiple QAs will be doing it in the later forward. Third is use of descriptive test names. So when we use descriptive and meaningful names for the test cases, that conveys the purpose and expected outcome, making it easier to understand and maintain the automation test suite. If we always know, like as a team, as an organization, there will be QEs who are coming in, we are going out. If we have a very descriptive test scenarios which are described in Jira or whatever the test suite people have in the organization, whenever the new QEs jump into that, he can really understand it and write an automation test script from scratch. Or if there is any troubleshooting problem is there, he can just go through the test case and fix it in the particular code. So both are things are quietly interlinked and correlated to each other. One of them is isolation of test data and test environment. So when we should always have separate test data and environment configuration from test logic view to facilitate easy maintenance and scalability of automation test suite. It should not, like if we have separate test data everywhere, it should not impact all the different environments. Each environment should be independent and should run extensively by its own, so that we can do faster deployment and faster delivery of the process. Finally, sir, one of the major important criteria that we have implemented, and it actually helped us a lot, is test case prioritization or priority-based testing. So prioritizing the test cases based on criticality, impact, and frequency of use to optimize the automation effort, which actually help us to ensure maximum coverage with limited resources. So we should know when we need run which type of test suite. It could be a high critical test suite, it could be a medium regression test suite, it could be a different complex test suites. So if we have separate or segregated design test suite, it makes it more easier to run based on parameterized jobs. Like I would say here, there is a concept of CI/CD integration. So if we have a integrated CI/CD parameterized things, so for one particular functionality, I need to run this, and we should have all the test cases in one test repository. So if we have this segregated set of test repository, it's very easier to run and prioritizing the test development or the execution. Final one is continuous review and refinement. So regularly reviewing and refining the test cases to identify areas for improvement, streamlining process, and adapting to the evolving requirements and technologies is very crucial. So every with evolve, as I told, like if the product is developing, there will be multiple review and refinement happens. A functionality might change in the future with the UX changes or UI changes. So we should regularly review and refine those test cases or test repository so that the automation framework that we have should not get impacted. So I would just say over the gist, this is the few basic things that we usually use in our best practices in our day-to-day life, and it actually helps us in automation test development strategies.
Yeah. So Abhishek, I mean, even writing modular test cases and also parallelization also adds, a great value. Thank you for sharing those insights. I think our audience would be, happy to know and take these tips and also implement in their test automation strategies as well. A quick refresher. Let's have a quick poll before we move on to the core section of this particular webinar. So please go ahead and type in the answers that you feel, and we'll quickly move on to the next section. We'll give it another 10 seconds. So you must be having the poll question coming up on your screen. I would appreciate if you can just go ahead and, choose a particular option that suits the best for you. So it's kind of to get an overview of your existing setups and your view. Okay, cool. Moving on. Yeah, surely we'll have a demo as well for the audience who are, eager to, see something live, right? So before we move on to the demo, I would like to, get into the core of today's webinar, talking about, the struggles that are there with the emulators and the simulators out there. And the majority of our TA community, see a lot of pushback when it comes to running the tests on emulators and simulators, because the major reason being that you can't, replicate a real world scenario. So I would like to ask Pinky and Abhishek, right? So what are your experiences, and what are the common struggles that you see when it comes to using emulators and simulators or any other technology, versus a real device cloud?
Okay, so Aditya, when we talk about emulators and simulators, so what are we trying to say to the intended audience here? So we are trying to, mimic an environment which is similar to a real mobile device, and that acts as a platform and where we can do our testing. Now, the problems when we talk about what we face in for using emulators and simulators majorly can be, one is, geolocation or the location. So the simulators or emulators placed or located in one place, or the setup or the configuration is done in one place, and we're trying to access it from another location. So that can obviously cause a hindrance due to any downtime or server issues. Another thing is the parallel executions, which might not be available with a given bandwidth and so many setup or devices, one device at a time. Device availability and the cost. So, like if we are not able to set it up, and what if we get a scenario to test it on certain devices for, local testing, that availability of the device might not be feasible always. So what we see when we check on the real devices as a solution, obviously BrowserStack does support the app automate, and we have a various n number of combinations through BrowserStack capabilities which can be, automated to support real mobile device testing along with the specific tiering for the parallel executions. And it does support the latest versions for the latest devices for Android or maybe iPhone. It also supports live devices. So anybody who has not been able to automate it and is not from automation background, it definitely gives a wide range of live devices where someone can, validate the same scenario for their UI or web pages through the live devices for any Android or iPhone combinations. It also gives, the accessibility features enabled so that any person who is physically challenged, so from their point of view also, that testing can also happen. And technology has evolved over the years, and now we have a Chrome plugin called Chrome Dev Tools, which does support and gives a wider range of device combination supports. So if somebody doesn't even have the support for devices or browser stack access, can even automate through Chrome DevTools plugin, which is supported for Java as well as Selenium, and then can validate the various combinations for browsers, because obviously we wouldn't be able to have always a person with a Windows setup always not have a Mac setup to validate the iOS or a Safari browser at a given point of time with easy accessible. This being said, we are not just testing it on browser, we are testing it on mobile, which is more and more user friendly, but in a different set of combinations through automation as well as live devices. This is basis my experience through browser stack. Abhishek, what do you think? How do you feel about this?
So definitely, Pinky, like I agree with the points that you have highlighted here. So emulators and simulators offers a convenient and cost-effective way to test apps, but they do have limitations compared to cloud-based tools like BrowserStack. There are actually multiple topics to debate, but the major one that I would try to highlight here are like one of the key point is like limited hardware coverage. So we are restricted to a limited set of pre-configured devices and versions if we are using like emulators and simulators. We cannot extend beyond a certain range. And with the invent of time, as you know, day by day, every day we have a new mobile device that is coming to the market, new OS that is coming to the market. So we definitely make sure that the application that we have developed should be tested with these new devices. So that is one of the major problems. The second would be like limited scalability. Running multiple emulators simultaneously can definitely drain your local machine resources. So limiting scalability for larger testing needs is actually required here. So as we know, like we have a set of like multiple QEs get a different configured set of laptops. And if you are actually using emulators, it would definitely impact your particular machine resources, the CPU, the GPU coverage. So this is where BrowserStack or some kind of browse like the cloud-based tools, it's completely plug and play. We just need to provide the configuration there, it will run there. So if we think on the product development perspective and the amount of time we invest on configuring and maintaining the emulators, it would be more efficient and cost effective to focus more on a tool which can exclude this head work but done by the QA in maintaining and configuring them in your machine. So if we consider the return on investment with cloud-based tools such as BrowserStack in test automation, there are some significant or multiple form factors are there, which I try to see as a comparison analysis, and it's how it more effective than the others. One is cross-browser and cross-platform testing. So if a cloud-based tool such as BrowserStack actually it provides a wide range of browsers, operating systems, and devices. So it ensures a comprehensive coverage and helps identify compatibility issues early in your development cycle. So reducing the risk of bugs and enhancing the overall quality of the product. This is what one of the added feature or enhanced feature from BrowserStack. Second one would be like I would say like the time and cost saving. So by providing access to a large library of real devices and browsers in the cloud, BrowserStack actually eliminates the need of maintaining an extensive in-house lab. So this leads to a significant cost saving in terms of hardware procurement, setup, maintenance, and associated operational overhead. The third one would be like faster time to market. So like a cloud-based tool like BrowserStack actually have facilitates parallel testing, allowing multiple tests to run simultaneously across different configurations. So this accelerates the testing cycle, shortens feedback loops, enable faster delivery of high quality software product. So therefore, thereby it improves our effectiveness or competitiveness and revenue potential. So overall, I would say if you have a lot of combination which is ready with a plug and play and mode, it actually helps us to focus more on functional coverage on the automation with the remaining part is being handled by BrowserStack, and we can actually effectively test more and deliver more faster. So this is my opinion here. I think Aditya and Pinky, and I would say like to the audience, this is how we have deployed these changes, and it actually helped us over the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think without any further ado, right? After listening to the comparisons between MLS simulator versus real device cloud, I think it is a very good time to actually have a look at these functionalities in action, right? So whatever we spoke right now about implementing a test automation strategy, uh, executing them, trying to get reports out of it, trying to understand few use cases of real devices, so on and so forth. There's a poll that is out there for you guys. I just wanted to get an overall view of what are the interesting features that you would like to see. I would be covering a few in the demo. And if you want to, have a more detailed kind of a session, you can surely contact us and we can, get on a call and have those dedicated sessions for you. So now let's move on to the advanced use cases and look at the setup that I've built for you guys. So I have a Jenkins integration here. You can see that I've built a pipeline with BrowserStack examples for TestNG. Basically, it is a Java TestNG setup with Selenium as the base framework. And this is integrated with Jenkins as CI/CD tool, where I go ahead and build the pipeline and just execute the pipeline. Let me just go ahead and enter my credentials so that I can begin the test for you guys. And you can see basically the profile that I'm going to run is BrowserStack parallel browsers. I go ahead and build here. So as you can see, Pinky and Abhishek spoke about the CI/CD. They spoke about how, what are the best practices of actually implementing a CI/CD and how important it is and how easy it becomes when it comes to executing your test cases, right? Be it smoke, sanity, or regression. And even it's not only for the testers or the QA folks, it's also important for even for the manual QA, even for the manual QA as well as developers, if they want any kind of results on the fly and see whether the modules are working the way it has to, they can easily use this pipelines to check that, right? So as you can see, it is trying to pull the code from GitHub, run those tests and generate the report. So before I move on to the automate platform and show you the actual execution, I wanted to divert your focus towards the whole setup itself, right? So as you can see, this is the BrowserStack examples test ng project that I have imported here. So you can see the different folder structures that we have maintained to understand and basically place the modules the way it has to, right? Which becomes easier for you when you want to execute a particular profile or a particular test case that you want to do. So as you can see, I've just pulled your attention towards the BrowserStack parallel browsers profile here in the pom.xml of your typical test ng Java test ng test suite, where I have integrated with the BrowserStack. Yeah, Siri just popped up. I don't know why. So where we have integrated with the BrowserStack SDK. SDK is our latest implementation where we give you that flexibility for running your test with zero code changes from your side, where it automatically understands what is your framework. And you get the choice of defining the browsers and the device combinations that you want to run on, and also the additional or the advanced features that you want to do. So as you can see, as soon as I invoke this particular profile, the Java agent runs with the BrowserStack SDK. And you can see that I'm pointing to the suit XML file, which is my test ng file. Quickly moving on to the test ng file, you can see that I'm running the end-to-end test. I'm running the login test. I'm running the offers test, basically testing our e-commerce platform. And you can see that there's also users test. So all this is running in parallel. And when it comes to marking your test pass or fail, or giving a name to your test case, everything is handled by the SDK for you. So moving on to the actual execution, where you move on to the test, the base test, where I've defined a before method here, where I'm setting up the remote web driver pointing to the BrowserStack hub URL, which is needed along with the capabilities for us to understand that you're running a test on BrowserStack. And also, if you want any kind of internal resources that you want to execute, then you go on to the BrowserStack local and enable that as well. And then the teardown would be just a driver.quit. This is the mothership, right? The BrowserStack.yaml file, which is overridden with your capabilities, and then SDK understands, okay, these are the capabilities that the this particular test suite is needed, and that is what it adheres to and runs on the Automate platform. So first thing is that you give your username and access key to understand which account you want to execute this particular test. And like Abhishek mentioned during his talk, that giving a test name or a project name becomes really critical, right? So that it's understandable, and if many QAs keep coming and going, right? And the test case, remains eternal. So to understand that and keep that flow in is where you need to give your unique project names and the build names that you want to actually present during your run. And then this is where you actually provide the name of the platforms that you want to run the test on, right? So you can either go for a desktop browser combination or a device browser combination. All these tests that are run on real devices on BrowserStack platform. So, and this is controlled by something called as parallels per platform, which understands that how many tests have to be run on these multiple platforms. So as you can see, the parallel per platform is set to 5, right? And the number of platforms here that I've configured is 2. So that means I can run, I mean to say that I can run 5 tests on these 2 different platforms in parallel, spinning up 10 parallels at this point of time, right? And running them all, simultaneously. And you can also mention few debugging features that you want to do to understand the logs that you want to collect during a particular test run, and also mention the advanced features, right? Pinky spoke about geolocation, where it becomes really important to know in a real device how does your website behave when it is in a particular country, right? So this is where you can mention geolocation with the country code that you want to, and BrowserStack understands that, okay, this is the configuration, and it starts running your tests according, like your web application is in France as of now. And then the network profile as well. Abhishek mentioned during his talk that checking different network profiles, the way you run your tests, right, across 3G, 4G, different technologies, becomes really important. And this is a very active use case that most of the customers would like to understand, and then try to build those robust products for their customers, right? This is where we come in and help you do that. And also, if it is behind, if your web applications are behind a proxy, you can also mention that here as well, and then just trigger your test cases on the BrowserStack platform. So now moving on to the dashboard itself. So as you can see, there's a build that got created just now in a few seconds back, where you can see the tests are created and executed on BrowserStack platform in parallel, where you can see the different login tests, checking order tests, and you can see also the failures very easily mentioning exactly what happened during that test case. So once we get into a particular test case, we give you the input capabilities, the different a video log where you can understand what exactly happened during this test. You can see that this is a login check, as well as checking whether there are existing orders or not, right? So as you can see, the execution is pretty fast on BrowserStack. And also the text logs that you see, where at every command that was triggered from BrowserStack. So there are also different features that you can look at, like the network logs, the web performance, as well as other logs, such as the Selenium logs, the console logs, terminal logs. And also, if you have any kind of integrations with CI/CD tools or SCM tools, you can directly, create bugs on Jira, Trello, GitHub, or Slack. We have integrations with those as well. And we give you like an overall gist of how long did the test run, what are the number of sessions that were run, and also give a public URL so that you can share it across your personal as well, and also integration with observability, where you can easily go and look at the test reports. So moving on with the webinar and a short demo that we saw, I would like to throw up another poll here where we would like to understand your interest with BrowserStack before we move on to the Q&A section. So we will give it a few seconds to know whether you're interested in the BrowserStack automation testing needs or not. Okay, doke. Okay, I throw the first question to Abhishek. So we have a question, Abhishek, here. How do you ensure that test automation framework is not brittle and does not require frequent changes?
Okay, Aditya, I think that's a very common question. The intent of the question could be like what they're referring, it's a web, a mobile, or a UI, so or an API. So specifically, these kind of scenarios we usually face in UI-based automation framework. Let me give you a scenario where we have faced this situation. When, as you know, with the latest technology that is coming in, so we should have like UX changes, frequent UX changes that comes there. It actually impacts the respective page object repository. So we have collected all those elements and the locators. And if these UX changes are coming into the picture, definitely a huge number of test cases or the scripts are going to fail because the elements are being impacted with the new changes or the new CSS package changes are there. What we did here is we have implemented the test data ID concept. So we have done a coordination between the dev team during the development stage with coordination with the QA, the number of elements or that are going to change. We have asked a unique identification ID or a data test ID that need to be added during the development stage itself into the CSS package. So this would be unique to all the lower environments or the higher environments or pre-production environments. What it does is like in case in future changes, the UX changes also, the test automations would not gonna fail. It gonna because the unique identifications, these IDs are unique and it will gonna click on whenever it is required. So this actually help us to minimize a lot of failures with the UX or the UI changes that comes into the future because of the customer needed, but also to maintain a regression stability over the period of time. So I hope like this is one of the common use case that we have implemented and it actually supported us.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to the next question, I'll shoot this to Pinky. There's a question for you, Pinky. So if we want to switch from a manual test to automation tests, what should be our first step and how we start this process?
So if somebody wants to, deep dive into automation and is a beginner, definitely can start with an initial hands-on on the particular language. Say suppose somebody is a background from Java or somebody is from C# or somebody is from Python. So initial hands-on would definitely help. And before doing that, in your local, if you can do a setup. So like example, if you want to write a simple code on Java, you need to have a setup on your local setup. So a person need to understand how it can be done. So you have an editor installed, whether it is IntelliJ or Eclipse, whichever you're user friendly, install Java. And then if you want to, because you're a beginner, let's go by Maven. Just, download and install Maven and do the appropriate path settings. And once you are like, well versed with the tutorials, and you would be definitely getting a lot of tutorials in Google or, a lot of online sessions or YouTube sessions, just go through it. Try to write one simple line of code where you can just say, something you want to print or you want to, write something. So like, an initial scratch before deep diving. The more and more you understand, the integrities of the concept for any programming language. Language is just, a barrier where you can, your syntax would be changing from Python or Java or C#, but your concepts, whether you're using an OOPS concepts, when to use a method, when to, or where to initiate, when to call the framework, where to put an assert. So when your concepts are clear, I think any language wouldn't be a bar. So pick up which is the easiest and start with it.
Thank you, Pinky, for that. There's a question where they're asking us, how do we handle de-evaluation of tests in a test automation suite over time? Abhishek, can you just provide your insights on this?
Yeah, so Aditya, I think I have highlighted this one common topic like continuous review and refinement process. So this is a very critical process that need to be done over the period of time. We would definitely know if functionality which is critical now might be de-evaluated in the future stage because a new process is integrated with it. So if we follow this best practices over a period of time and we always refine and review our test repository, we will definitely know what are the test cases are there which is not that much critical over the period of time. Now we have to include more scripts there. So if we know the base case, which is the repository that need to be is critical or which is de-evaluated, we're going to make the same changes to our automation test scripts also. So it's a continuous plug and play role. We have to always evaluate and we have to make sure our test suite is in line with the critical functionality, and the de-evaluated scripts or the scripts which are not that much required or critical need to be descoped or need to be minimized in execution lines of code, and we have to focus more on the other critical areas. So that's one of the major topic that I've highlighted there.
Thanks for that, Abhishek. So agile means responding to changes fast, right? And so how do you ensure that you're responding to the changes in the code fast? So this is another question. Pinky, would you like to take this up?
So just to brief, I'm sorry, I didn't get that question again.
Yeah, agile means responding to changes fast. So how do you ensure that you're responding to the changes?
So that's where the beauty of framework comes into picture, right? So you do not have to write everything from scratch, and you have an inbuilt framework and you have the test scripts. And when you want to have it in an agile based model and you have sprint to sprint delivery, so a framework helps there. Your framework is all set with your libraries and reusable methods. You are just writing the scripts. So your automation testers would be just drafting the scripts, and they can also start at a very early stage when the development phase is going on, when the use cases are already there. That time only they can start writing it. Definitely there would be a test data dependency which would be changing specific to environment or before a production release. So that time they can update the test data, but that doesn't give them the leverage. They cannot have a pseudo code. So your use case during the design phase, so when the building is happening, the development is happening, during that phase only the scripts can also be generated. Later point of time, just before the transition from one environment to another environment during the deployment, you can just update the test data and evaluate it, and that would obviously adhere with the agile timelines.
Yep. So quickly moving on to the next question. This is for Abhishek. So Abhishek, you can quickly let us know and explain us briefly what is regression, sanity, and smoke testing and the differences between each.
So 3 things here. I think very specific thing. If your product is in development, we need to check like whether the integration is working. That comes as smoke. If the product becomes stable, and you have to do a sanity, whether the critical functionalities are working fine or not. That is comes to the sanity. And the third is if you are doing if a new features, we need to be in live and it's a big product, we have to see whether the impact of the new feature is not affecting the other or the other functionalities which is already existing. That is where regression comes into the picture. So smoke and sanity are quite similar, but it depends whether the product is stable or product is unstable. And regression comes where we have to check and evaluate if all the functionalities are working fine, irrespective of the new changes coming into the product.
Yep. Thanks for that, Abhishek. We're almost at the end of the webinar, and there are a lot of questions, and surely we'll take them off.